Hey everyone, hope you guys are having a great evening. Just wanted to start by doing a quick oil check on the CRV. So I have probably just only about 1,000 kilometers on this oil change. Maybe 1,500. I can't quite remember, but pretty early stages. So you can see that the oil is quite clean, not much to it. So the dipstick. The car hasn't been driven for the whole day, so this is a cold engine oil check. So it's probably going to be a little bit on the high side, but then again, I filled it up a little bit on the high side anyway when I did the last oil change. So that's where it's at. Oh, it doesn't smell like anything. It smells like fresh oil, so that's good. Check the cover. Not no smell or anything like that. So that's good. And the reason why I checked that is just in case, there's any bubbling and moisture or whatnot, right? So there's none of that, so that's good. Yeah, I just wanted to do something a little bit different today. A little different, or a little bit more of a chat. So bear with me, just gonna do the setup quickly. Just wanted to do a quick session on the, some better lighting there. Quick session on the oil dilution and carbon deposits. A few different things there, talking points anyway. With DGI engines, there's obviously some challenges. DGI is probably like 10 years old now, so it really isn't a very old technology. And before that, we had port fuel injection and carburetors and whatnot, right? So with this new technology, DGI, it obviously does give you a lot of, fuel economy is going to be one of them. More control. Oops. More control of the fuel mapping. So obviously, these are some of the really strong positives of direct gas injection. However, it comes with a lot of caveats, and I'm not gonna, be a Honda apologist, but I will say that Honda is not the only one with this this type of technology, and not the only one with this type of issue, right? So the idea behind what I'm trying to get at is we have DGI that is designed to satisfy CAFE, corporate fuel economy ratings, and this gives like carbon ratings that give automakers tax incentives, and or they'll get fined for that type of high carbon output, right? In various places like California, and I think there's federal taxes as well on high carbon emissions. Carbon emissions credits, carbon credits. So you guys probably heard of that scheme. I'm not an expert with it, but it's one of those things that these incentives, I get it, I totally get it, but the incentives actually push for new technologies like DGI, hybrid, and then obviously full electric, right? But the hybrids, full electrics, and these new technologies that, and obviously I can't forget AIS, or auto stop start, or auto idle stop technologies, things like this. They all contribute to a better CAFE rating, but it wears down. In this case, it wears down a bunch of parts, like your starter, like your starter motor, your alternator, your whole electrical system, including the battery, is going to be strained, right? With DGI, we have, I'm going to go into the negatives of that, but more importantly, hybrid, there's extra parts, there's a bigger battery that is other than the 12 volt. You have bigger batteries than the hybrids, plug-in hybrids, even bigger batteries. And then when you get the full electric, you have literally 1,000 to 2,000 pounds even of batteries adding onto the weight, right? And then how much do those extra parts, batteries, right? How much carbon emissions are needed to make the batteries and all those extra parts in the hybrid, right? And then in the long run, hybrids have more moving parts. I know that Toyota hybrids are very, very reliable, but at the same time, there's more extra moving parts. And even Toyota hybrids are not perfect either, right? I want to mention things like the recent story behind the battery of a Hyundai, was it Hyundai? Yeah, the Hyundai full electric car, the battery got scuffed during a road hazard, rolling over a road hazard. I think it was probably like some piping or something, and basically it scuffed the protection plate and caused the whole car to be written off because the battery was literally $60,000 Canadian to replace it, right? So what happens when that happens, right? The idea is that happens, and then basically the whole car is wasted, written off, and the battery has to be replaced under regulations. And how much carbon does that emit? Because you basically have to replace the whole battery, and that battery gets dumped, right? There's all sorts of things in this to debate. I don't really not. Yeah, my idea is not to debate it. The more I want to just bring into light some of the challenges and whatnot, right? And with DGI, that one that I want to focus on is the fact that DGI, it gives you more fuel economy because there's more fuel control of the combustion chamber, and then extra ability to do fuel mapping, and it is more efficient at full warm up. At cold engine starts and less perfect situations, such as engines that have DGI with a lot of let's say carbon deposits, cars that have problems warming up like the CRV, right? And all sorts of different less than perfect real world situations will cause certain issues that will rise, and basically you may as well just go back to carburetor, since DGI requires a lot more maintenance. So that's the key, right? Yes, you get better fuel economy, satisfying CAFE, but there's going to be high maintenance. And as we can see on our CRVs and Civics, fuel dilution is one of the issues with that is attributed by the DGI system, right? So just wanted to go through that a little bit, so that because there were a few questions that were asked on my comments, and I just wanted to sort of expand on that, right? So again, so we got a piston, right? So let's just go with one piston. Didn't want to make the piston that long, but anyways, this is the piston, connecting rods, right? Crankshaft. And with the Honda's combustion chamber and head, right? There's 4 valves per cylinder, spark plug, and the a direct injection happens, I believe, sideways. So the direct injection happens sideways, spraying fuel into the combustion chamber like so, right? So, so this is your direct injection, right? Intake ports and exhaust ports. I know the drawing is a little bit messy, but excuse that. And the idea behind this is that the fuel gets sprayed into the chamber directly, right? And there are other systems that spray downwards, and there are other systems that will spray in the direction of the air intake, right? So the Honda is probably a bit of a combination of direct injecting into the walls of the cylinder, plus taking some of the air that goes in to help swirl the fuel mixture and the air together in order to give you proper atomization of the fuel. This works very well in situations when it's a warm engine. The piston, everything is hot, and the piston, this combustion chamber, everything is nice and warm. When it's warm, the injectors are able to spray in, and the fuel gets atomized into gas, right? Because if it doesn't get atomized into gas, basically the fuel actually goes onto the wall of the cylinder, or it just pulls, like quote unquote, pulls onto the piston head, the top part, and then on the walls it will seep downwards. It could condensate and have all sorts of different things, like the air comes in with water, right? Just water from the air, and that can cause the fuel to go down basically into your oil, or your crankcase, in which case where the oil is, and then it mixes in with your oil, and then basically you have fuel dilution, right? So that's going to be the gist of it. Like, there's just no way, like, basically, it's one of those things that is very, very difficult to control during a cold start, right? And especially when you need to run the engine at a little bit more richer, so more fuel to get the engine to warm up faster, right? And then the automakers are forced to use stuff like AIS, auto idle stop, to stop the engine mid-stroke and cause the engine to cool down, and because when the engine is turned off, let's say during the winter, it will cause the engine to sort of, like, it's not heating up anymore because it's not firing, right? So it cools down in the winter, and then further exacerbates the fact that this combustion chamber doesn't stay hot enough, warm enough, best conditions to atomize the fuel properly, right? And when that atomization doesn't happen properly, you get carbon deposits. So the issue is that when the carbon deposits collect, not just carbon collecting in the exhaust and intake valves, right? It collects on the spark plug, basically everywhere, especially the piston head. So when the piston head is dirty, right, that can cause knock, because if there's carbon on these areas, it can cause parts of the combustion chamber to be hotter, in which case can cause spark or knock. So let's say if this part has a lot of carbon, it gets hotter, and a fuel actually detonates here instead of from the spark plug, which is centered downwards, versus pre-detonating in a corner or something, and in a wrong time and wrong timing and wrong spot, and that's where knock happens, right? Let's say it happens here or here, wherever it is, that'll cause knock to the engine, and it could basically cause all sorts of different issues, including extra carbon deposits. And then worse yet is when the rings get carboned up, and then there's one oil control ring down here. If that gets carboned up, and then you get even worse with oil actually not being squeegeed in a nice controlled way, and then there's excess oil that gets onto the combustion or the cylinders, and basically there's extra oil there, in which case then you start burning oil, right? There's two rings for the compression rings. So these two rings, if they get carboned up, they actually will seize and not be able to. They actually move a little bit in a specific manner, and when they get carboned up, they'll get stuck, right? These rings have to be clean, right? If they're not clean, that basically causes a whole myriad of issues, right? Let's see. I'm not going to be the best to explain this, but let's say you have a zoomed into. So this is the side of the piston. You got the rings, right, and then the oil control ring, right, and you got the cylinder wall, right? These rings, right, they're actually shaped in a way that they move a little bit, and they're designed to actually expand as well, right? So when they go up and down, they move it. They actually rotate a little bit to be able to keep compression, right? Because when they move down, they pivot a little bit, right? And if they're actually not able to move, then then it'll cause uneven wear and all sorts of different things, right? And that's caused by carbon deposits. So the other thing is that these rings, right? These compression rings. Go to a different spot. These rings are not closed. Like there's a gap here, and they have to have a gap, right? Because at cold, this gap is largest. When the piston and everything warms up, this ring will close up, basically getting closer but never touching. They actually never touch. If they touch, you get catastrophic damage, basically. So there's always going to be a little bit of a spot where the piston is just not sealed. So there's another ring, and that's the same idea too. There's a gap. And then the oil control ring also, well, anyways, the oil control ring doesn't actually, job is not for compression. Only the top two rings are for compression. And these two rings basically allow some gases to go down towards your crankcase, right, where your oil is. So that's actually why we get fuel dilution. And the thing is, with the new engines, most of the new engines, these rings are low tension rings. So why are these low tension rings? It is because the lower the tension, the less friction that the piston has to fight in order to move, right? And that contributes to better fuel economy, better fuel efficiency, right? Better efficiency, but because they're low tension, like there's not a lot of tension pushing out, right? That also can give you like leaky compression, right? Gases, and all sorts of stuff, soot, whatever it may be, goes down into your crankcase, right? And low tension rings are also part of that initiative to make the engine more efficient, right? And basically contributing to all sorts of different issues like carbon deposits and burning oil and fuel dilution, right? All three of them basically. So how can you fight this? Well, I've always said to turn that off. Just turn it off. Just don't use it. The auto idle stop or auto stop start technology is useless. Like it's. I mean, yeah, you probably save a little bit of fuel, and then it'll lessen the amount of emissions into the air, right? But that less emission into the air, how much less, right? And then if it causes all sorts of different issues with your engine, let's say if you have to replace your engine, you have to redo your piston, your head head gasket, because these engines have issues with head gaskets, right? Due to pinging and pre-detonation and the knock, right? When knock happens, it causes issues with the head gaskets and it leaking, and then basically you have to spend an X amount of money to fix that. Cost money, time, parts, labor, and obviously those things that you need to spend on anything that we make has a carbon rating, like an X amount of carbon that you have to use to, X amount of water you have to use to make all these parts, right? So auto stop start, turn it off, and then to prevent this knock, right? Knock and pre-detonation, 91 plus octane. Unfortunately, especially with turbo, we have to stick with 91 plus octane, and that helps with the fuel dilution too as well, actually. And then furthermore, it'll lessen the carbon deposits, because typically 91 plus octane will have more detergents to keep the engine nice and clean, right? I use a combination of PEA, gum out, PEA, which is polyethylene amide, right? It's a type of chemical that is proven to clean DGI related carbon deposits, right? So you clean that. I also use Marvel Mystery Oil, MMO, and I still have some seafoam, right? The gum out probably is better, but anyways, I'm gonna stick with a few of different types, and I use a little bit every other fill up, and that's what I'm doing, and it's been helping with the fuel dilution. And the final thing is, yes, change your oil. I'm doing 5,000 kms, which is about 3,000 miles oil changes, especially because of turbo. Because these engines that uses turbo, when you guys leave the auto start on, the engine stops. Especially in the summer, AIS is super bad for the turbo, because basically the turbos run at a really high RPM and high heat, right? Because it uses exhaust gases, which is extremely hot to begin with, to turn the turbines, which in turn turns the other turbine to force the air induction, right, which is the turbo. So because it uses exhaust to turn the turbines, the exhaust gets extremely hot, especially in the summer, right? So that hot gases will heat up the turbos, and the turbos have moving parts, and it's also lubricated by the same oil that is in your crankcase. So it's exact same oil. And why does your oil get so dirty so fast? It's a lot of it is due to your turbo, and oil gets recirculated from here over to your turbo, and the turbo basically gets extremely hot, and the auto stop start stops the engine when you're at a stoplight, let's say. And what happens is that that oil in the turbo, especially the exhaust side bearings, will actually coke, right? There's a lot of talk in the turbo communities about coking, right? And basically, coking of the oil, it basically burns the oil at that high temperature in the turbo, and you're basically having your engine stop and then start again, and that oil doesn't get recirculated, right? So that's why the coking happens. When the engine is idling, right, the oil keeps recirculating and recirculating and recirculating through the bearings, right, of the turbo, right? And basically, it prevents the coking. But if you use your auto stop start, right, the coking will happen, right? There is gonna be if you have your AC on, right, during the hot summers, then most likely it will not turn your auto stop start on, or it won't enable it. But if your interior is cool enough, then the auto stop start will engage, in which case then the coking happens. Okay, so there is a note there that I wanted to add about that about the AC. But if your AC is on, more than likely your auto stop start won't turn on, but sometimes it does. So yeah, just a quick note there. What else? So if you change your oil more often, then it's going to help with the coking, in which case you change your oil. And if you are getting oil dilution, basically, then you just drain all that oil out. Yeah, that's the idea. The oil filter, always change your oil filter. If you're going to change your oil, change your oil filter. There's some YouTubers mentioning that they change the oil without changing the oil filter because they do it every 3,000 miles. Well, if you change your oil, you might as well change your oil filter. Just change it. The oil filters are not super expensive, right? But if you go full synthetic oil, you might as well change it out too. In which case, sorry, that part didn't get recorded. But anyways, yeah, do change out your oil filters each and every time. That would certainly help. All right. So yeah, hopefully you guys got something out of that. Thank you again for subscribing, liking, sharing, and I know I have some new videos about the zodiacs and whatnot. Do take a look at that, give it a chance. I know it's probably not your cup of tea, but the zodiac and some of those ideas are I think it really does help help people in the long run, sort of help them out with understanding life, and some of the idiosyncrasies and some of the mechanics of the things that you can't see, right? So yeah, do give it a chance, give it a watch, and if you like it, please like it and subscribe and share. Yeah, hopefully you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you guys soon. Do take care, and bless you all.